Coaches, welcome to the Better Coaching Podcast powered by RYG Athletics, a proud provider of Nike sports camps. The mission of this podcast is simple. We want to help coaches get better. We do it by connecting coaches with ideas and strategies they can implement to grow as a coach and a leader to ultimately better serve their players and teams. I'm excited to welcome Coach Napoleon Sykes to the podcast. Napoleon just finished up his 5th season at the Lawrenceville School in New Jersey, capping his 20th season in the coaching profession. He's coached at the youth, high school, collegiate, and professional levels and has built a reputation as a strong recruiter, X's and O's coach, and a culture builder. In this episode, we're going to be discussing becoming a head coach, building a program culture, building your coaching staff, and lots more. And before we dive into the show, if you're interested in learning more about how we serve and work with coaches, you can head to the show details for links to the free podcast notes, our free online community of hundreds of coaches, and or information on becoming one of our Nike sports camp directors. Now to the show. Enjoy. Coaches, welcome back to the podcast. Super excited to be joined by longtime friend Napoleon Sykes. Napoleon is the head football coach at the Lawrenceville School. I'm excited to have him on the show today to talk about his coaching journey and just coaching in general. So Napoleon, I'd love it if you just started out and gave the listeners a quick little bio about you and your coaching journey.
Yeah, for sure. Well, appreciate you. Like when you sent me the message the other day, I was like, yeah, let's reconnect. So, so again, my name is Napoleon Sykes. I'm the head football coach here at the Lawrenceville School in New Jersey. This is just finishing up my 5th season here. Got into coaching right after playing at Wake Forest University. Went back to my high school, the Gilman School, and coached with Joe Ehrman and Biff Poggi there. Kind of ended up working my way down, got an opportunity to go back to Wake Forest as a graduate assistant. So took a pit stop between Gilman and Wake Forest and hit Mallard Creek down in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is now one of your top public schools in the state. And we started that school with Mike Palmieri, Jose Garcia, Jose Palacio. Those guys got it up running off the ground there in the first year. Ended up at Wake for 2 years, went to Naval Academy under Ken Niumatalolo and Buddy Green and Ivan Jasper, all that whole crew. And then had an opportunity to go to UNC Charlotte with Brad Lambert, who was my position coach at Wake, to start football there, and had a really cool opportunity of getting that thing from, we were recruiting kids off of a piece of paper and renditions of what the stadium would look like. And then quickly getting up from 2012 to 2015 into Conference USA. And then had an opportunity to go back to the Naval Academy after that, 16, 17, 18. And then where did I go after that? Then I did the NFL internships, fellowships with Washington and Chicago. Had an opportunity to get with Pep Hamilton, who had been a friend for a few years. He actually, was recruiting Gilman when I was there as a coach, and that's kind of how we met. And had an opportunity to go coach the D-line with him for the DC Defenders in the XFL. And then post-COVID, had an opportunity to stay right in Maryland and take over as the defensive coordinator, assistant head coach at Concordia Prep School with Joe Battaglia, who is one of my best friends from growing up. His dad was one of our coaches at Gilman. And then in 2021, I had an opportunity to take my first head coaching job here at the Lawrenceville School. So it's been in the world of coaching, it's a lot of moving, but probably not as much as some other guys. But I've been really blessed to have the journey that I've taken so far. So yeah, excited.
Dude, 20 years. You said you just finished your 20. Man.
Yeah,
That's
incredible. 20 years.
That's amazing, dude. Congrats. That's so awesome. 2 decades. Before we get into serious questions, so Gilman School, Biff Poggi, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
That's the same Biff that's at Michigan, right? That's handing out legendary post-game press conferences.
Oh, yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Dude, if you are a human being and what game was that where the reporter asked him after that big win this year where he's filling in
Well,
as the interim head coach,
he
right?
had one where he was talking about Bryce Underwood. He was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's Batman, but we're probably gonna have to do like a DNA test. And then the other one where he said he was gonna smoke a cigar and eat a cheesesteak, and he's probably gonna have to go to the hospital. Like Biff is like, he's the best. I mean, he's
That
the
interview
best.
was incredible. I mean, that was everywhere. He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go eat a tub of chocolate ice cream, smoke a cigar, and then probably end up at the ER later."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He used to do that back when I was a player. I mean, he would always be like, you better tell that other team to pack a lunch. Like, no,
yeah,
he's the best. Yeah,
yeah. It
no, he's
seems
awesome.
amazing. Yeah, that
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Let's talk about becoming a head coach. You just finished your 5th year. This is your first coaching or head coaching gig. First, I think it's just worth noting you spent 15 years coaching before you got your first shot at being a head coach. Um, Sometimes it takes a while, and
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes you got to be patient and you got to cut your teeth and you got to do the work before you get your opportunity. So props to you for doing that. I think that's hard for anybody in any line of work to
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote wait your turn or to develop until you get to the point where you have that opportunity. But talk to us about it. What was it like becoming a first time head coach? Maybe things you did well, things you would do differently if you could go back and do it again. Just really curious what the experience was like for you.
Yeah, I think it's been awesome. I mean, I think, uh, like I said before, I say it all the time as much as I can. I was really fortunate to coach and play for some of the coaches that I did, and have um, mentors and sort of figured out what I wanted and how I wanted to do this profession early on in my career. I think helped out a ton. Like I always go back to how I got into football to begin with was, I wasn't a football player. I was a soccer kid. I grew up playing soccer. And was really good at it. And so I was playing like a high level of club soccer when I started at Gilman. And the soccer program really wasn't great. I mean, like it was okay. So I kind of picked up football as just a hobby. Like I was like, I can do club soccer outside of school and then try something new. So my first interaction with football was, Biff Poggi and Joe Ehrman, which is like the subject matter of Season of Life, right? And how they taught the game of football, how they use the game of football to impact kids' lives, right? So like that was my introduction to football. And so when it came down to the recruiting process of trying to figure out where I wanted to end up going to school, like what Jim Grobe and that staff was doing at Wake was it was as close to my Gilman experience as I could get. And that staff was, coupled with the Gilman staff, coupled with, how my dad coached me as a kid, that really set the foundation for what I wanted to be as a coach. Like when I decided I wanted to be a coach, I looked at the people that I had as coaches, right? And so I think as you go through your process of becoming a coach through this profession, you kind of share and you grab a couple things from here and there. I was just fortunate enough to have the people that I pulled from were transformational guys, right? Guys that were big on relationships, big on doing things, the right way, worrying about the kid, not the number. And so I think coming into, like you said, it's 15 years later, you get an opportunity that works. Like I had an opportunity before that. It wasn't a good situation for our family. Turned it down, ended up, staying where I was. And then this opportunity was one where I was like, I feel good about it. I feel good that we could go there and do some good things. I feel like we could build a program that was a part of the school community, not just football. And so I think just taking all the lessons that you learned over the years and trying to get, I think I'm kind of all over the place, but like when you do take that opportunity, I feel like the best thing that I did was really having an idea of what I wanted to accomplish as a head coach. right? And then and if that wasn't good enough, then I would reset, but like I went in wanting to be more of a program builder and building the culture. And then hopefully the wins and all that stuff would come. So I feel like after 15 years, what I did a really good job of is just listening and learning, which I think is like, you know, uh, it's hard to do. I mean, like most people that get into coaching, you're super competitive. You are a player. They're so and then we're men in general, which are, men, we're not the best at being humble and the best at being good listeners. So, I think what I gained from all those coaches was just like, be a sponge, like always try to learn something, always try to take something here, like watch what people do, write it down if you like it, right? And see how you could implement that into how you do things or what you want to do. So, I just tried to listen as much as I could over the years and learn and soak everything up. And so, getting here the first year, it was a really small staff. Like the guy that was here before me, I think had a lot of coaches that left when he left. And so it was pretty bare bones as far as like, the number of coaches. So one of the first things that I had to do was like grow the staff, which is really hard to do at a place, like the Lawrenceville School, that is not your average high school where, you can't just hire a teacher coach, like the teachers that are here are people that have PhDs and master, like they're not going to just hire a guy because he's good at coaching football. So like trying to find a staff that really works with this place, but also works with what you're trying to accomplish football wise. And so I had to find help. Like I knew that the first thing I needed to do was find some help. And so that is, that is what the whole first year was about, which is trying to lay the foundation of what I want it to do here, how we want it to operate as a program, how I wanted the kids to operate. I can get into some of that stuff later on. But like one of the first things I did that second year was, I had an opportunity to bring in our current offensive coordinator, which is Pat Laughlin, who was a head coach at a school that we played against the year before. And he was in a situation where he was ready to, change scenery, and like it worked out. He's like a high level French teacher also, like, and so it was great, like brought him in and was able to like give him the offense and go from there. And then, brought in like John McMillan that played at Mississippi State and took over our offensive line, added in Jill Gagliardi, who has been awesome. She's our DB's coach, defensive pass game coordinator. Has had an opportunity to do some of the NFL internships. James Rossiano is a young guy that is really sharp. He's a New Jersey guy, but just like a football junkie. And then have some other guys come through. This year we added Aaron Aiken, who's an alum that played at Georgetown in Coastal Carolina, and he's a quarterback trainer, but took an opportunity to come here as the receivers coach so he could teach from a different perspective and give back to, the school that he graduated from. So like, it's been great just being able to, build a staff and build a culture and, try and build something that will last a little bit longer than, the 10 of us on staff.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to talk more about that. What I'm hearing you talk about is just you recognize that as you came into it, like I've got to lay a strong foundation here of purpose and clarity, success, our values, etc. And as I think about that, when you go into a new place program, especially high school below, and probably even some in college, right? I'd say there's three primary kind of, well, maybe four stakeholders in that. You kind of have your administration, those people that actually hired you for the job, your ability to communicate that to them. It's probably why you were offered the job. And then you have your coaches that are on your staff, and it varies by sport, but obviously in football you have a fairly large coaching staff. And then you got your players, and then you've got your parents, right? And so I actually would be really curious to go through those last three and just hear a little bit more about like what were you communicating to them? Were there things you did? Were there activities you did? Things you were communicating to those three groups of stakeholders as you took over leading this program? And I guess maybe let's start with coaches. You were just talking about them. obviously that staff changed a little bit. But when you took over, the coaches that were there, or as the staff really changed in that second year, what was it that you were doing with them to try to get everybody on the same page around who you guys are and what you're
Mhm.
about?
Yeah, I think having a clear vision of what you want, right? So, I had always bring it down. I was an English major, so like words are really important. And I always tell coaches, I'm like, your words are like money. You got to treat it like money, and like some of us have infinite money. If generationally wealthy, like you can spend as much money as you want to. But as a coach, you're always gonna have a finite amount of money, right? The word. So like the big thing that I talked to our coaches was just like, how are we gonna coach? Right. So like, goes a little bit some of the Joe Ehrman teaching, the inside out coaching and stuff, which is, like the big one is like, what does it feel like to be coached by me? Right. So like really an introspective deal. And I had to, as a head coach, I had to kind of take that role on. I had done that exercise a ton, just, working with Joe over the years. But it was always like a coach to a player. Right. So I knew what that's like. Then it comes to that different model of like, all right, how does it feel to be coached by me, but me coaching another coach, right? Like I have coaches that have kids and coaches that have wives, and like they're teaching, they're doing other things, like they have other responsibilities outside of football. So like how do I get the most out of them from a football standpoint, while also being respectful to the other things that are going on in their lives, right? And so I kind of laid out what I wanted, and so like I feel like, in anything that you do, if you can start from a place of love and compassion, like you got a shot, right? If you really are about the people, you have a shot. Like it's never going to be perfect. And there's always going to be people that don't like you and people that can't, whatever. But like, when you try to do what's best for the people around you, and that is really your goal, I think you have a shot at doing well, and all you need is a shot, right? So like really talking to that first staff was just about how we do things here, like how we coach kids. We are teachers first, like we want to teach things, right? Like if you're on our coaching field, what you're really never going to hear is a coach yell, catch the ball. You're like,
Hmm.
I'm like, guys, don't tell them to catch the ball. Like, I've never met a wide receiver or a running back or anybody that's supposed to catch the ball that didn't want to catch the ball. You know what I mean? Like, give them something else. Hey, reminder, hey, we want to frame that ball this way, and so like always teach, right? So like always be in a habit of trying to help the kids out, come from a place where you're trying to get those kids better, right? Give them the tools to make them better, right? And so like, the way I kind of frame it for our coaches and our players is we have one team rule, right? And I kind of got that just over the years. Like, you go to these different places and you go to these clinics and everybody's got like this list of rules, and I'm like, great. Um, and ours is just be a gentleman, right? So like I posted something a couple weeks ago about like get to the bag, like BAG, be a gentleman, right? And for me, that's pretty easy, because if you just start there, then and you can do the small things like how you talk to people, how you treat people, right? If you walk into our building and you see the guy that, the custodians that walk in there and you treat them the way you would treat the coaches, like that's you're gonna do the other things, right? So like, um, being a gentleman is pretty simple. Like just being a good dude's not hard. Like treating people the right way is not hard. And so eventually all the things that we teach here are things that hopefully you take longer than football, right? So like for me, this coaching profession, I was actually talking to a buddy of mine. They just got let go today, and we were having this conversation about it. Um, and it was talking about how, if you took coaching out of my life, it would be really hard because it's not a job. It is like part of my vocation, right? So like if somebody were to offer me $1 million and it was to go coach soccer, I could go do that, because like it doesn't matter what the sport is, it's just a mode to do what we do, which is try to, you know build young men for the good, right? And so if we take that as the root of what we do, then you at least have a purpose, right? So like that was what I was trying to convey to our new coaches that came in. It's like you got to have a purpose for why you do this, right? Like if it's just to win games, that's not enough. It's really hard. Like if you're just trying to win games, you're going to have a moment where you'll do something that is not best for you. It's not best for the kid. Like your focus will be on the winning part. And so that was the foundation that I wanted to lay with the players, right? So like being a gentleman, TCB, like you'll see us TCB all over everything at our program. And it's just take care of your brother, take care of business, right? And like that's what we're trying to do. Like just be here and try to do the things that we're asking you to do, right? Like it's some of those funny conversations where you'll have with kids in our program. And I think like some of it is generational because there's so many things that you can do right now. Is we've had to train our kids. It's like, yes, you could go to play 7-on-7. You could go to 1,000 camps, but like if your eyes are in the wrong place, you're going to struggle no matter what, right? Because that's just a really small base level detail, right? It's the same thing. Like if you can't speak to our managers, like our managers here, our young ladies, if you can't speak to them with respect, it's be really hard to do mostly everything else in our program, right? So like, so that's where it started, right? We built that. That was our main focus, right? And I think I also talk to them about like toughness. I think it's really hard just in today's, you know, society, world or whatever to be humble um and just be a good dude. Like it's hard to do that. Like it's hard to not be boastful. It's hard to not, do all the things. It's hard to not just leave when things are hard. Like it's our we are a get rich quick, society right now, and so like it is harder to just go through the process, right? Like we, this kind of is going a way farther ahead, but like we give out a program award here. It's a brick with your name engraved on it for kids that made it 4 years in our program. And then for our managers that did 3, you can only be a manager for 3 years in our program. So like that's a really big award. We give out a lot of awards, but being able to be a kid that has made it 4 years is really important. Just because like we had a kid, we do this thing, it's a senior walk, and we did this at Gilman as a player, and I brought it here, and it's like the last practice before the last game, our seniors walk. Like our team goes and sits up in the bleachers, and our seniors, all of them, managers, everybody as a senior is associated with the program, walks the field. They walk the perimeter of the field, and they can take as long as they want to, and they just chit chat, and some of them are live, some of them are crying, and all that stuff, and then they come back and talk to the group one last time and just give them some wisdom or advice or something. And a kid last year made such a great point. His kid Walker that played for us, he didn't play. He came here as a sophomore, didn't play as a sophomore, played as a junior, senior. And, he said the thing that he regretted the most, he didn't play as a sophomore because he was worried about being on JV. And he was worried about what people would say about him being on JV, right? And then, so he started as a junior, and guess where he ended up? On JV, right? And, he was just like, look, if I give you any advice, it's cooler to go through the process and do all the things and learn and build these relationships and, struggle and overcome things. And then at the end, feel like you accomplished something than just being cool and not seeming like you're a JV player. Right. And so like we build that, we go back to that being a gentleman piece and talk about that also makes us really tough. Right. Cause it's tough to just be a scout team guy and be a 2. You know what I mean? It's tough to like work on the details. It's tough to do that. It's tough to wait your time. It's tough to do the little things consistently all the time. Be a good dude every day. Treat women the right way all the time in every situation, right? So like that also makes us a tough group, and so like we've used that small little rule, which is be a gentleman, and that's kind of sprinkled its way out into the rest of our program. And like I'd like to say, I mean, we've done really well. Like our first season, we were 3-5, and then we went 7-2, 6-3, 7-2, 6-3. So we put together 4 winning seasons, which is the first time we've had 4 winning seasons consecutively here since before like 2014, I think it was. And then, so it's worked, like, but I think it's just been that like our focus is the kid, right? Not the player, right? I always tell kids, I'm like, I'm going to yell at number 16. I'm going to get after number 16. Like if 16 was bad today, I'm going to tell you 16, he was bad today. Then after you take off 16, I'm going to talk to you about you. Like 16 has nothing to do with who you are, and so we're going to love up 16 and we're going to love up the guy who wears 16. But we're going to be, those two things don't always have to correlate, right? If you're not a great player, it has nothing to do with how we treat you and how we respect you and how we support you, and so that all comes from that like small little rule of just like being a gentleman and taking care of your brothers, take care of business.
And there are so many good things there. I'm going to try to pull out a couple of them. First, I love at the beginning of what you shared that you were just self-aware enough to reflect like, okay, now what's it feel like to be led by me as a head coach for your staff? That's huge. I think we all need to be mindful of that, right? As if you are leading other coaches, what's it feel like to be an assistant coach for you, right? That's huge. We want those people to thrive too, and then be able to go out and serve the players that we're leading. Then, the clarity that you created there. This is why we're here. This is our purpose. This is how we're going to treat kids. These things are acceptable here. These things are not. Like that alone, being clear there is so important for every head coach to do. I mean, sometimes you see a program where it's like, man, that assistant coach acts in a way where it's like, what? There's some disalignment there. You guys are not aligned on how things are supposed to be done there. And then, the clarity and simplicity around your rules for your players, right? Be a gentleman, but then also, I think you said TCB, take care of your brother, take care of your business, right? There's just so much that can go into that. Like just to use those phrases as an anchor to come back to in your practices, in your pregame and your postgame. It's like pretty much everything we're doing here can come back to one of these things, right?
Yep.
Take care of your business or take care of your brother. Like being selfless, doing your job, being gritty, all those things we can link back. That I think it's important as coaches, even just from a communication and clarity standpoint, that we have some words, phrases like that we can anchor to for our players in our program. And then also you talked about some rituals and awards that you guys have, like the bricks, like the senior walk. You said I'm actually curious here. You said you have others. Are there other awards or rituals that you guys have that you do to reinforce that culture you're trying to build?
Yeah.
Those
So
things can be really valuable.
Yeah, so we do one where we we started a couple of years ago. We play the Beyonce song at the end of camps, like upgrade you. And so like I always like we pick the numbers and all that stuff. Like guys, like like we just finished the season, so like your returning starters, I always ask those guys like, hey, do you want a number change, all that stuff, right? And then we'll bring in, like, here we have post grads, so we'll let the post grads pick their numbers next, and then like we'll all the other guys, right? So one of the things that we've done since I've gotten here is during camp, someone that just shows up to camp and like does a great job, we upgrade those guys. So it was like, it's pretty cool because we've had some kids over the last couple of years that get to, like kids like a good number, right? Like you don't want to be out there being number 39 and you're playing corner, right? Not in high school, at least. Like if you're in the league and they give you 39, they can give you 40, 91, you go play whatever. But like in high school, your number is like it gives you a little bit of juice, and so like every summer we upgrade somebody at camp, and it's really a kid that is just like, it may not even be a kid that is going to be a starter. It's just somebody that showed up for preseason camp that like, just really showed out and like deserved to be upgraded, right? And it's just like something small. Like this year this year was a kid, Archie, who's awesome. He's a kid from China that plays D line for us, and like he's gonna have some opportunities to play like Division I football this year as a senior. And like Archie struggled last year was his first year here. And he really struggled. Like he couldn't find his spot. He wasn't quite a defensive end, wasn't big enough to be a 3 technique. And then last offseason, I was like, hey man, like, I think you are an inside guy, but you got to get bigger. Like, we got to get you a little bit bigger. I think you could be really good at this. You're sudden, but like, you play well with your hands. And he absolutely tore it up this year coming back. Like, and it was a guy that we were hoping we could count on, but you just never knew. Like he had to come a long way. Like he had to put in a lot of work to be the guy that he is. And so like we upgraded him. He wore number 6 this year as a D lineman. And you talk about, it was huge because there was no doubt he should have got upgraded. Like there was, no hard feelings about any of the kids. Everybody was super excited for him. But it also I think it was just this moment for him where, we validated his work. Right. So like we had an opportunity to validate his work in a public way. Like obviously everybody would say like, you're doing great, and you're going to start and all that stuff. But like, it was a public validation to all the work that he had done. And so we did that. Like I think some of the things that we do, our preseason is interesting here for a high school because it's a boarding school, right? So like when they come for preseason, they live here. So like we can kind of give them this college football feel where you wake up at 6:00 in the morning and you're rolling until 10:30, and then you go back to the dorm and you got all your people there. And so the cool part here, which I think speaks to, like people always ask me these things. I'm like, it sounds kind of douchey because I'm like saying we're doing stuff that's good and it's worked, but so our makeup. So how to frame it is we bring in postgrads, we bring in some repeat juniors. So we bring in kids at like freshmen, but we also bring in new sophomores, new juniors, and postgrads, right? So like when you get a team that next year, our preseason starts on like August 19th and we play the first weekend of September. So like, but they're not here the rest of the summer because we're a boarding school, right? So you are essentially getting a brand new team every year, and you got to get these kids like bought in and ready to roll in like 2 weeks, and so the last night of preseason, we have we have some there's a couple of nights in there where we have these conversations, and one of the nights is Coach Jill talks about consent, which is great because they get to sit down and have a female talk to them about what it's like being on the other side of the men, right? But this is also it's not just a female, it is someone that they respect at a high level that is their coach, right? And she talks about being the woman in the room, which is eye-opening for a lot of our kids. And so that is a really, really vulnerable meeting. So like the guard comes off real quick. And so at the end of that meeting, we allow the seniors to just talk, right? So like throughout camp, we bring like the freshmen up. They get to say something about where they're from, their favorite team. Then you can do sophomores and the juniors. Well, the last group that goes is the seniors, and they go the last night of camp. And like when they get dropped off, I always joke with the parents. I'm like, your boys will be different in about 3 weeks. And they're like, what? I'm like, they're going to call home and talk. like, like high school boys, they don't do that. And so it was really cool. Like this year, we had a post grad that came up, and you're talking about an 18-year-old boy that is sitting in a room full of kids that he's only known for at this time, maybe 2 weeks. Like we do some Zoom meetings like here and there in the summer, but like this is the first time this kid has been in the room physically with this group of people. And he gets up there and he talks about, I've never told anybody this, but where I am from in this small town, like I didn't really fit the mold. I was bullied. I didn't really have friends, and like honestly didn't enjoy football. Like it was something that was a means to an end. And so like, but over the last 2 weeks, like I feel like I've made genuine friendships, and like, you get these moments where, everybody's crying. Like all the kids are crying. Like there's a cry fest, and like, but I think it's a really cool opportunity where we've created this space for boys to be vulnerable, which I don't think there's a lot of space for that. And we're doing it in probably the most violent sport you can play on the planet, right? Where it does require you to be hard. It does require you to be, a little vicious at times. But like, we've allowed our kids and built a space that's safe enough for them to let that side out and make really, really genuine connections and friendships to where they can let their guard down, right? And when that happens, one, I think it's just cool that boys are allowed to do that. You know what I mean? And like it's okay. Like we say we talk about the word love here and all that stuff, and we do that a lot, but it shows up with the kids when they play. And that has been the cool part. Like you get all these other things, but like our kids love each other and they like play really hard. And they, like the last game of the year, we play our rival, the Hill School, and like the game's over and I look over and there's this sophomore and he is balling. I mean, like he is, I mean, we, it, we won by a whole lot in the rivalry game, right? But he is balling. And I'm like, you okay, buddy? I'm like, hey, you all right? And I put my arm around him and he just goes, I just can't believe Archie's gone. And you know what I mean? And it was just like this moment of, man, like these connections are more than football, right? Like this kid is realizing that uh, a teenager that is a mentor figure to him is like now moving on, right? And so like I think those are just, I mean, we do a lot of different things, but a lot of them come down to like a lot of tears.
Yeah, I getting it is. It's like it's like the connection drug. I know that sounds crazy, but like vulnerability is like a connection. It's like when you get a group of people to be vulnerable and totally honest with each other, the bonding connection that happens is really special, and
Yeah,
especially in
without
a
a doubt.
team context. And you guys are being intentional about time away from your field too. You're creating space and putting time and energy into having conversations and experiences that do more than just get you ready to play a football game, but actually build a connected team. I'll share something. I wouldn't shock me if you guys do something similar to this, and if not, take it and run with it. A few years ago, a team that I was coaching, we had 7th through 9th graders in our basketball program, and low income area, very diverse. Just we knew that our kids had a lot of diverse experiences, traumatic experiences, probably in their past and in their present. But myself and the 9th grade coach, I was coaching the 8th grade team at the time. I was like, man, I want to know some more about these kids. Like, there's a lot we don't know. So we just brought them in a room and we just said, hey, look, we're giving you 10 minutes to write. Here's the prompt. Tell us about something hard you've gone through in your life. That's it. Just tell us about it. And we just said, look, the only people that are going to read this are us. We won't share it with anyone else unless it's like for your safety and we have to report it to the police or something. Right? We won't share it with anyone else without your consent. And now myself and that coach, we also had at that point well over, he had a couple of years, I had a year or two of relational equity with these kids. They trusted us a lot and we had strong relationships with all of them at the time. But we just asked them to write. Tell us about it. They write. We collect these papers, I don't know, 40 papers. And I start reading through them during my planning period after this. And I'm just in tears reading these things. I'm like, oh my gosh. Just some of the junk that these kids had been through. It's just heartbreaking, And this kid's 12 or 13 or 14. Give it to a coach I'm coaching with. Same thing from him. He's like, wow, that was heavy. And then we decided we were going to fairly strategically ask a few of the boys if they were willing to share this story with the team. And we said, hey, look, you don't have to do this. But we think this would be powerful if you shared what you've gone through with your teammates. And so we told the team, hey, there's going to be some guys that share their story, etc. And we picked a kid who was well respected by his peers, really a leader. We said, hey, will you share your story with the team? And his little sister had died in an accident a few years earlier, got caught in a storm drain, swept off and drowned. And he was out there playing with her when it happened. This was when he was in like 3rd or 4th grade, and now he's a 9th grader. I mean, he tells this story to the team. Yeah, again, most people are in tears. He's fighting back tears. But it was like, whoa, wow, we really don't know what our kids are going through or have gone through until we take the time to ask them. And then just the connection and love that was shared between all of them when someone was willing to be brave and share. And then it made it easier for the other guys to go too.
Well, it's snowballs.
Guys were willing to step up and say, "Yeah, I'll tell my story too."
Yeah, it's snowballs.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And to your point too, like especially young men, they do not have spaces where that's acceptable, encouraged, fostered, right? In so many ways, especially for young men, a space like that is so transformational. And for some of those boys on your team, on my teams, etc., it may be one of the only times they experience it in their life.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And or it may be the first time they start to build that muscle. And hopefully when they're married and have a wife and kids, they know how to engage in some of those hard conversations. You know what I mean? Like there's just so much good that can come from asking the questions, building a relationship, and creating some space to have those conversations that can be uncomfortable, but can be really powerful and connecting too.
Yeah. No, I love it just because it does do that. And I think there's just like, like there aren't many spaces for that, and like, I think there's, if you, I don't know, if you have the ability to have, if you are blessed enough to be in a situation where you have the platform to impact like the next generation, like, and you don't really, and you're not intentional about that piece of it, like you're kind of like, you know what I mean? I'm like, if all our kids leave here, like, yes, we want to, like it's where we work is it's transactional, right? Like your kids are transferring in from other schools because they want to come here because people come here and they recruit. There is a transactional component to that, right? And like that's business in general. But if all they get from this is they leave and they're prepared for college and they get to where they want to go, like we sort of failed them. If they just leave our program and they were like, got my offer and I'm good. And like coach taught me how to play quarters, or hit it up in there, an inside zone. Like if that's all they took from us, we've like completely dropped the ball. Because you have so much time with them where you can impact, if you impact them, then you impact their kids and you impact the other people that work for them. Right. And like someday they'll be a husband, someday they'll be a boss. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You get to impact, you have the ability to impact a lot more people than just that kid by investing in, like, if you get 50 kids in your program a year, and you lose 13 of them a year, that those 13 kids are going to impact 100 apiece. Right. Like, and so like, if you look at it that way, I think it keeps you grounded in that's what I try and tell our coaches is like, most of these kids aren't going to play football after they leave here. You know what I mean? So like, and then the ones that do play football, chances are they're not going to be Tom Brady and play until they're 42. and then so like they're going to play for a finite amount of time. So like give them the tools they need to do this, but like give them the tools to be the type of people that we want them to be. Like that's like that, if you go back to that Joe Ehrman deal, the last question that he always asks is like, how do you define success? Right. And it's like, yeah, you can win games, but like, Biff used to say this all the time. Like, when I die, they're not going to put my record on my epitaph. You know what I mean? Like on my stone, they're not going to put my win-loss on there. And like, hopefully the people that show up at your funeral aren't talking about like how many games you won. Like hopefully they're talking about some other stuff, like how the interactions that they had with you, like how you positively affected their lives. You know what I mean? Like how you, maybe got them in the room with another person that affected their lives, or how they helped you do, like, ultimately that's how if you want to be, like I always used to say, like being immortal selfish, but like if you really want to be immortal, it's just like how you impact other people, right? How your impact can live on through the works of other people, right? And so like if it's just ball, like you'll die out. Like
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
forget you.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because as you were starting that, I was thinking about my high school soccer and basketball coach, Coach Chug. I mean, he had a massive impact on my life, is a big reason that I fell in love with sport coaching, do the work I do now. He, yeah, I'd love to put him and Joe in a room together for an hour and just listen to them talk. Like they're kind of cut from the same cloth. He was such a transformational leader, just vision and purpose. But I have said for a while, and this might sound odd to some, but like when he passes away, I'm going to be at that funeral. And I don't know if I could pay someone a bigger compliment than that. You know what I mean? And I got to go sit in he retired 5 years ago now, probably, after coaching for 30 or 40 years, most of which was at the same school. And this cafeteria, this gym is just filled with people that he impacted. And dudes that are, 40 with teenagers for kids, and guys like me who were in my early 20s just having a kid, just the generations that he impacted. I think it's so, it's so important that we highlight that, remember that, and just consider that too. What success looked like for us, like at the end of my life, at the end of my coaching journey. But what do I want? This is another just quick story. I was filling up my car with gas the other day, and I looked over, and the attendant at this Sam's Club actually, I didn't even recognize it. I just walked up to this person. I had to ask him a question, and he looks up and he goes, "Oh, hey, coach," but like with a big smile on his face. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Hey, Che, like how are you? It's good to see you." And but he was like genuinely glad to see me.
Yeah.
And I was
That's
so
awesome.
glad to see him. But I
Yeah.
was like, "Hey, like that's good." Like, and I was not easy on him either. Like we butted
Yeah.
heads quite a bit.
Yeah.
But just to know, like, oh, okay, I think I probably did something right if he was glad to see me
Yeah.
6 years later,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and to think about that. What do we want these kids to say about us years later, or at the end of our life or journey? Man, it's so powerful. Yeah, it's so sobering.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
puts
being
in
a
perspective.
serial family
Yeah.
guy. We just try and collect as much family as we can.
Oh yeah. Napoleon, this has been awesome. We didn't really get to talk on it. The
We'll have
third
to do a
kind
round
of,
two. We'll have to do like a
yeah,
part.
the third group of stakeholders we mentioned earlier was parents, but we didn't quite get there. But yeah, so much value in this conversation for coaches. I appreciate you taking the time to share about your experiences and your passions, and the lessons you've learned along the way. Before we wrap it up and hop off, you can just share with coaches for a second where they can connect with you online or contact you, or anything else you want to give before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I'll shoot my email to you, like, and if you ever want to reach out, but like I'm mainly on Twitter or Instagram, and it's just Coach Poe, Poe wins, Wins.
I love it.
Yeah, it's like my same thing. I've had the same cell phone number, so it's like the kids here always give you a hard time. They're like, when you get a cell phone, would you? I'm like, dude, it just stayed in my glove compartment. Like we didn't
Yeah.
use phones back then.
Yeah,
It's
for
not like
real, man.
I've had the same cell phone number since I was 16, and I think I've had the same Twitter handle since I got one. So like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. You can't change the cell phone number. Too complicated
Yeah.
now, man.
Yeah. No. It's the worst.
Yeah. I've actually forgot something real quick. 1
Yeah.
minute. 3 rapid fire questions for you. I may have asked you these previously. Maybe your answers have changed. Maybe they're the same. Here are the 3 questions asked. The first one, you can just fill in the blanks. The most fun part of coaching is
Kids. Yeah. Just being with the kids is awesome. They're a ton of fun.
the second one. Sorry, that was the third one. Second one, I wish I would have known blank before my first coaching experience.
Oh, man. That was a hard one. Trying to think what was my first one. I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known because my first one was when I was young. I wish I'd have known that like that first coaching job when you're really young, like they're not your friends. They're not your friends. They're not your friends.
It becomes you've got to,
Yeah.
It's a different relationship.
Yeah. When you're like 23 and your first coaching job, you're like, I'm only
you
like
can
5
relate
years
to them
old.
a lot, but it's got to be a line. Yeah.
Yeah.
The last one, and we were just talking about it. I know I'm successful as a coach when.
Yeah, I think it's to your point. It's when you get those conversations and those calls about like, like, hey, coach, I'm getting married, or coach, I just had my second born, which is crazy because I'm like, like coaching that long, I got kids that are married with their holy smokes. But like those conversations where they're not the football ones, where it's your football kids or the kids that you coach or your managers that are, like calling that because they just want to share something exciting with you because like you've built a relationship that they want to share success with you, like those are the coolest ones. I mean, I got like one of my managers, she got this really big internship with us. She wants to be an agent, and so she got this really big internship with sports agency, and so she called me to let me know that she got it, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, what'd your parents say? She's like, oh, I haven't called them yet. I was like, what? Like, you called me first, and it's just like, she's like, she was just so excited to tell me and my wife that she's like, I'm gonna be in New York City so we can hang all summer and like I can come see the kids, and like, it was just those moments where you have like you said, where you it's a little bit of that like selfish validation where you must have done something good if a kid wants to stay connected with you and share their success with you, down the road after you're done with them.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. Hey, well, Napoleon, thanks for your time, man. I so appreciate you. Love the work you're doing. Keep it up, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Coaches, thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast, and a huge thanks to Napoleon for joining me. To learn more, connect with Napoleon, or to get a free PDF of notes recapping this conversation, check out the links in the show details. And if you're interested in joining our free online community of hundreds of coaches from across sports, or becoming one of our Nike Sports Camp directors, head to the show details and click on those links as well. Thanks for listening to the podcast.